Well, Stephanie, 2 more days left of the Lent reflections. What should we talk about?
Well, why don't we talk about what we remember from the first half of the Lent calendar, which was about hope and reaching out. So you started off, and your hope through Easter was Jesus on the cross, through which we have had our debt paid in full.
Yeah, and then it was Leah, and she reflected on Psalm 13 and made me realise again that Jesus is a constant through everything, before COVID, in this time now, and afterwards. He is the same throughout.
And Charlie was in church and felt that God was there with him, although he was alone in church. And that lovely picture of him out in the snow doing smiley faces on cars to bring joy to people.
Which led on beautifully to Natalie talking about snowdrops and the 3 things: going deeper into God's presence, remembering, and being food for after the winter period that we're in right now.
With beautiful pictures.
With fantastic pictures.
And then there was that beautiful painting, Leona connecting through her creativity and her painting that she did, I Am the Door.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can just quote what she said, that was God saying, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly.
And then it was Hannah who sang one of her amazing songs, and I loved the line at the end. It said, lean into the gentle breeze and feel the silence tender and real.
Gosh, and Fleur held up that fantastic picture of personal brokenness on the cross being, and the way to get healing through the cross for personal brokenness.
And then Piers and Annabelle, I mean, they reflected on the last temptation of Jesus, which was a really interesting reflection on that particular picture. I was struck by the way the artist interpreted the temptations differently to the way we read them, but the message was still just as clear.
And Nicola showed the model of youth in the National Gallery, and that moment where you realise you're in a mess, you can't get out of it. Do you look to those around you, or do you look to Jesus and say, help me?
Which leads on to Carol talking about the I Am series and reflecting on that bit in Romans, that nothing can separate us from the love of Christ, that his love for us is abundant.
And I loved the poems that Simon has read and talked about by Andy and Stephen, and the Gerard Manley Hopkins Pied Beauty, and the really detailed descriptions, and then Andy saying that last line, praise him, how that makes you stop still. Yeah. And the other poem that they talked about, George Herbert, Love, where God really is love, and feeling unworthy of going to that table that's prepared by love for you, and being drawn to it by the attractiveness of love.
Yeah. And their third one was the Wordsworth Tintern Abbey, which, even though it's called Tintern Abbey, isn't about Tintern Abbey, but Wordsworth's realisation that God is everywhere, God isn't in a place, that throughout nature and throughout creation, God is in everything. It was fantastic, because we grapple with that thought at the best of times. And
then David and Amifa talked about preparedness, and that Lent for them was about finding a place in their hearts to receive God.
And Jade gave us a thought on Simeon and Anna, and how they waited so long for something they didn't really know what they were waiting for, but they knew it was important, and they stayed faithful. And she linked that to how we must stay faithful and be salt and light, especially in these times.
And I was really struck by Tim Buckler's talking about Tiso, the washing of the feet, and him being asked by the nuns, imagine that you, Tim, were there and he washed your feet, and that he took that place of service and would give his life for you. And Tim just saying thank you. That's the Easter story.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed David's meditation on meditation. I need to read this to make sure I get it absolutely correct. Meditation, we must focus, understand, remember, worship and apply.
And then Rachel talked about storge love, familiar and comfortable, And like a home that we've spent so much time in the last year, God is our ultimate home. But she wanted to make space for God to make his home in us as well. The reverse.
Ikwu, he took that lovely thought that God's strength is only made perfect when we acknowledge our weakness. And that really struck a chord with me, that we try through our own strength too often, and yet God manifests himself and his greatness through our weakness.
And I loved Johnny's thoughts on Abraham. Why did he stop in Haran? And the frustration of us in COVID times. Why are we stuck here?
Yeah.
Whereas actually we need to trust in God, that he's preparing us, and to take it one step at a time every day.
Yeah. And then there was the thought from Thomas, as well as him singing that fantastic worship song, where he talks about when we're in a situation where we have no control over anything, then the most important thing to do is to pray the prayer Jesus taught us: "Thy will be done, thy kingdom come," because God's kingdom is victorious, and that's all we can hope for. So that pretty much covers the whole of the front end of the reflections.
That's all of the front end
It
of
is,
the reflections. So we can look forward to doing the next lot.
Tomorrow?
Yep.
Okay. Should we go and have a cup of tea?
Let's have a cup of tea.